Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the July 21st, 2025 meeting of the Stillwater City Council. This time I will call the meeting to order, and I'll ask that you all stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First up tonight, if you haven't heard, we have a big week of stuff opening here in Stillwater this week. Tomorrow we've got a fire station opening. Later this weekend we'll be opening Block 34. And one of the biggest reasons that we'll be doing that is because of two folks seated here in the front row, Steve and Becky Irby. And so I do have a proclamation in recognition of their just absolute tremendous support and generosity in for our community for a long time, but certainly as related to Block 34 as well. So I'm going to share this proclamation. Whereas the strength of Stillwater lies not just in its institutions and infrastructure, but in the passion, generosity, and vision of the people who call it home. And whereas Steve and Becky Irby, the entire Irby family, and Kicker Corporation have for decades exemplified what it means to believe in a community, investing not only in business and innovation, but in people, places, and possibilities. And whereas their dedication has helped shape Stillwater into a community known for creativity, kindness, and connection, values that are reflected in the enduring success of Kicker and the countless ways the Irby family has supported local causes, culture, and progress. And whereas their most recent commitment to helping bring Block 34 to life is yet another remarkable chapter in that legacy, one that will provide joy, opportunity, and shared experiences for generations of Stillwater residents and visitors alike. And whereas Block 34 is more than a project, it is a promise of public space, civic pride, economic vitality, and a future built together. It's a dream made real thanks in no small part to the heart and steadfast support of the Irby family. And whereas Stillwater is undeniably better today and will be stronger tomorrow because of the enduring dedication of Kicker and the Irby family, whose impact can be felt in every corner of our city. Now, therefore, I, William Joyce, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, and on behalf of the City Council and the City of Stillwater leadership, hereby designate the section of Duncan Street between 8th and 9th Avenues as Irby Lane to show our appreciation to Steve and Becky Irby for their extraordinary contributions to the Stillwater community.
Well, I think we're without words here. This is amazing. Becky's going to love this. I know. Just want to say thank you to so many people in the room, the Beckstroms, Bank First also, yes, and Simmons Bank, and many others that have donated. And I want to just thank the city for being so cooperative. This has been a fun project, and I think it's going to get more fun, and I'm very excited. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Well, that is, again, just a very small token of our appreciation to the Irbies, the Irby family, to Kicker, and all the folks who have made Block 34 a reality for this community. So be sure to come join us this weekend at Dancing Turtle Arts Festival and Saturday night at 7 for the official opening of Block 34. All right. On to the agenda. Consent docket, item 4. Questions, counselors, comments, or action on the consent docket?
I move approval of consent.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Please vote. Consent docket's approved with a vote of 5-0. Okay, so we have a lot of folks here who are signed up for public comment on items that are not scheduled for public hearings. If you haven't signed up, you do need to sign up if you're planning on speaking. I think we have forms over here if you need one. So we did this a couple weeks ago or a month ago as a public hearing, as required for a zoning issue like this. Because it's been continued, this is no longer a public hearing. This is public comment on an agenda item, so it's handled slightly differently. We'll actually do the comments now. There's really no other. There's a couple of public hearing items on this agenda that are going to be tabled separately from this item. So there's really nothing between this and when we'll actually do the presentation of this topic. But we will do public comment now as item 5 on the agenda. Instead of 5 minutes like you had under public comment, you have 3 minutes tonight for comment on this agenda item. And I will ask you to come up. Please introduce yourself. Let us know your name and address. And provide your comments in the 3-minute time frame. If you just want to agree with something somebody else has said, we don't have quite as many folks as we had last time, but we do have several. So feel free to just let us know that you agree with something that's already been said. But we're certainly eager and happy to hear your comments on this item. So we'll go item 5, and we'll start with Simon Ringensmith.
Good evening. My name is Simon Ringsmith, 1705 Eastland Avenue. It's nice to be here again. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to the concerns raised by me and my neighbors about the proposed PUD rezoning for Cowboy Landing. We all know this land is going to be developed. We just want it to be developed responsibly. What we object to in the PUD rezoning, the Cowboy Landing development specifically, even with the revisions the developers made, this is not a responsible way to develop this land. As many of the neighbors have explained previously, we live in a unique part of town. A lot of the families who live here have put down roots that go back generations. Homes are big, lots are spacious, it's peaceful, it's quiet, but Cowboy Landing goes against all that. It caters to out-of-town visitors looking for a space to party on game days. Residents would be temporary, and they would have no incentive to invest in building the kinds of long-term relationships that make up a healthy neighborhood. Houses in Cowboy Landing are designed to maximize efficiency, put lots of people in a tiny space with almost no yard. These are not houses for people to live in long-term, put down roots, and become part of the Stillwater community. It's great for close to campus, but not on the edge of town. But there's other issues as well, such as parking. The site plan, the revised plan, provides at least one dedicated off-street parking space and one single car garage per unit, but there's a problem. You can't park in the garages. Look at the plans. They're 9.5 feet wide, which means anything bigger than about a Honda Civic will not fit in a garage. It's not my opinion, it's a fact. Look at the plans. It's physics. You can't get around it. You're coming from out of town on game day. You're driving a truck, an SUV. You're not driving a Toyota Corolla. But these vehicles cannot fit in the garages. And if they can squeeze in, you can't open the door wide enough to get out of the vehicle. That means they're going to have to park in the driveway. But the driveways aren't big enough for 2 cars, which means people with 2 vehicles have to park on the street. But on-street parking is limited. So they have to park in the lawn. Or they park in Wedgwood, taking up space from the people who live there. So I admit, when I see the concept photos of Cowboy Landing, they look like nice houses. But if you look closely, especially the tiny garages, you see how impractical they are. If the PUD is approved and Cowboy Landing is built, parking is going to be a serious issue. It's never going to go away. It's always better to plan for the future than to build something that barely works in the present, knowing it's going to be insufficient down the road. But that's what's happening here. Some revisions have been made, and we do appreciate that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't belong here. There's a principle in project management called the sunk cost fallacy. It describes our human tendency to follow through with something that because we've already put a lot of time and effort and money into it, even though it's not a good idea. And that's what's happening here. It might be convenient to approve the PUD, allow cowboy landing, because we've spent so much time on this already. But if it's a bad idea, as has been demonstrated, it should not be approved. Thank you so much.
Anthony Shore.
My name is Anthony Shore. I reside at 2001 East Linda Avenue. The rezoning application does not meet the development land code pub code purposes, goals, or requirements. The application fails to meet the purpose of a smooth transition with the surrounding densities. There is 160 linear feet of two-story building, 20 feet from an 8-foot fence and a single-family property. 160 feet, right there in your sight line. They did not provide the required written statement of projected range of values of structures. However, they did verbally state at the most recent neighborhood meeting that the planned range of the values would be from 1/3 to 2/3 of $1 million apiece. These values are greatly higher than the current $255,000 average home cost in Stillwater. These are not entry-level homes, as the developer admitted. The application does not meet the goal of providing recreation areas for use by the surrounding neighborhood and the PUD. The recreation areas shown on the plan are misleading. The statement of intent explicitly states that the developer will not be building those areas. Leaves it up to the HOA to do it at some future time. So what you see on the plan isn't actually what's going to be there. The statement of intent does not have the required statement of the special considerations which require the PUD zoning classification rather than a conventional district designation. Instead, the purpose seems to be obtaining a variance to the bulk standards or other city code requirements, which is specifically forbidden by the PUD code. So, as allowed by the PUD code, you can deny the application for failure to meet the goals of the code, and I urge you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Stephen Fairbanks.
Members of the City Council, my name is Steve Fairbanks, and I live at 1724 East McElroy, and I oppose the development of the planned unit development 2502. I've come to realize this is an unfair process for homeowners who desire to protect their quiet neighborhood and protest something like a PUD. Let me explain. If someone submits an application that you do not approve and decide to challenge the project, it becomes your job to figure out what rules and regulations this project does not comply with that could disqualify the application. Then you must tell the person who submitted the application. He turns your information over to his army of accountants, engineers, and lawyers to tweak and bend and stretch the information to comply with city codes. After a time or two of this process, the applicant has a perfect PUD. What gets shoved to the wayside is why we do not want the PUD in the first place. The density of the PUD may comply with city code, but according to section 23307C6, the compatibility with surrounding neighborhoods does not fit. In section 23307F2 states, is the PUD compatible with existing and expected development of surrounding areas? It is not. The reduction of 42 tiny houses to 32 is a good start. The developer's word in 2022 was he wanted to build a subdivision like our neighbors in Wedgwood. I would like to see him keep that word. We all know this development is about money. After each step in this process, the cost of, I just want to build affordable houses for individuals and small families, has gotten more expensive. The last iteration of this development has gotten way more expensive, with houses starting near $300,000, soaring over $500,000. This PUD is no longer affordable houses. It is how much money I can put in the developer's pocket. I would like to suggest an alternative thought. I would like to see this PUD application withdrawn and have his professional army draw up a plan with a road lined with 5,000 square foot lots because the zoning is small family residential throughout his 4.2 acres so he can join the neighborhood as an equal. It may not be as much money in his pocket as he would like, but he would still do very well because of the location and the nature of the neighbors. Better yet, I would have the developer build an extremely nice high dollar home on each acre. People buying those homes would pay a lot to join a private neighborhood. The developer told me he wants to be a good neighbor. Prove it. It would be a serious precedent for the city of Stillwater to disregard the opinions of 35 property owners inside the 300-foot radius
Thank you, sir.
that is against the PUD.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you for listening.
Brian Price.
Good evening. Thank you, fellow councilors and members. I submitted an email this afternoon regarding my thoughts on the project. And from my perspective, it's really more about, I technically live outside the 300-foot zone, so wasn't involved in the planning commission meetings up to that point. But as soon as I learned about it, I did engage. And my concerns come from a traffic issue. The additional cars that go into that McElroy area from Jardeau over to Skyline, the transition happens actually after you are going west from Jardeau to Skyline, transitions into a school zone. And the additional traffic into there needs to be taken into consideration. The times I ask about a traffic study, will a traffic study be done? Didn't necessarily qualify. So just want to emphasize when you're taking in this consideration, I implore you guys to consider the traffic study. Thank you.
Thank you. Lyndall Stout.
Good evening, Mayor Joyce and City Council members. My name is Lyndall Stout, 308 Wedgwood Drive. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I'm here as a Wedgwood homeowner, as well as a neighbor, a parent, and like all of you, someone who believes deeply in the value of community. 45 years ago, my parents bought a home 2 miles east of McElroy and Jardeau and moved here from Blackwell. It's a home they still live in. In the early 1980s, I remember riding with them heading west to town and noticing that there were some new homes being built. And they were some of the first homes of the Wedgwood Edition. And I thought they were the most beautiful homes ever built. Fast forward 30 years, and after 2 decades away from Oklahoma, my young son and I relocated from Pennsylvania as I accepted a job at OSU. We looked for houses all over town, and lo and behold, we found our favorite one in Wedgwood. Great proximity to the grandparents, of course, for the young boy, but also for my son to grow up in a neighborhood that would continue to stand the test of time. And now he is a senior in high school. That's my personal story, but it's certainly not unique. Every person who's spoken up, signed petitions, raised concerns with the builders and at HOA meetings, and asked many, many, many questions, all in short order, I might add, has a similar story, connecting them to the place that they love and the place that they call home. We stand united in opposition to Planned Unit Development 2502. Rest assured, we're not against growth, but we are against quantity over quality. We're asking for development that respects existing zoning and considers traffic and safety and honors the people who already call this neighborhood our home. At the last City Council meeting where this proposed development was discussed, Mayor Joyce, you said you appreciated so many people coming out and speaking up with their comments, and that you really didn't want a development like this at the end of your street either. You tabled the issue and asked that the developers make some changes. Well, I'm concerned those changes are not enough. The proposed homes, due to the sheer number on such a small footprint alone, don't fit the fabric of our community. The community that first caught my eye as a little girl, and that I am now proud to say that I've raised my son in. So please vote no. Please listen to our voices. Let's grow Stillwater in a way that's thoughtful, safe, and community-minded, so the next generation of little boys and girls who are driving by the neighborhood with their moms and dads can also say, those are the most beautiful homes ever built. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your commitment to the people of Stillwater.
Thank you. Kathy Fairbanks.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Fairbanks, and I live at 1724 East McElroy. Our property abuts the west edge of this development. I continue to oppose approval of this development on East McElroy. Despite the decreased number of houses, I feel strongly that it still does not fit the surrounding neighborhood, just as she stated. If the developer did what he proposed in 2022, when he requested rezoning to RSS, 5,000 square foot lots, like those in Wedgwood, I would not have an issue at all, and we did not oppose it at that time. I am aware that additional parking has been added in this revised, but the total number of beds/bedrooms has not been stated. This information affects the amount of parking spaces needed. Most adults own their own vehicle. I question the sufficiency of a one-car garage and one pad, even with the additional restricted street parking and the guest spots. I'm also concerned about fire safety and that it's only 5 feet from the setback line between houses. I strongly urge you to figure out a way to connect sidewalks from this if this development happens up to Skyline Street. It should be a priority of safety. And I'm also concerned about his advertisement of Cowboy Landing as a game day house community. We would urge you to please limit the use of this type. I don't have any experience with an HOA, but I wonder what % of the homes will be built and inhabited before the HOA is established, which is supposed to then hire a management company to enforce the rules. There are still many issues. It just doesn't fit. Would you be in favor of this being built beside your home? I urge you to vote no. This afternoon, I sent you all an email with 3 requirements that I would hope that you would add. I also sent that to Mr. Alusi's representative, Mr. Gose, and he called me this afternoon and said that Mr. Alusi would be willing to agree to those 3 items if Steve and I did not speak against it tonight, and we obviously are speaking against it. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Danny Lamar.
I'm Danny Lamar. I reside at 316 Kyle Court, which is in the Wedgwood edition. I also happen to be on the Wedgwood HOA Board of Directors. I'm more opposed to this now than I was a month ago because of the change of the focus to a game day house, short-term rental type thing. To me, that does nothing to alleviate the housing shortage for affordable housing. Parking is also one of my concerns. I was sitting there thinking, I don't know if it's better to go first or last because people cover a lot of things before you get there. But anyway, I'm concerned about parking. The code variances that are requested. In my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason that we have codes is to uphold standards that we feel like are important. And if I'm wrong about that, you can correct me about it. Now, I do have experience with an HOA, living in one, being on the board, and HOA covenants are hard to enforce on a good day. If you've not never been on a board or lived in one, you don't realize that. And part of the problem is the state statutes, if you're not familiar with those, limit your ability to enforce those because the statutes say that the HOA should be able to enforce those covenants, but it doesn't tell you how you can enforce them. And you're really limited from a legal standpoint of how you can do that. The other concern that I have that no one else has mentioned is the property hasn't been taken care of in its present form. Hasn't been mowed this year. I don't know if any of us in here are brave enough to walk across it in tennis shoes, but it's pretty grown up, and that's a bit of a concern because as that's being developed, is that something that we have to look forward to when that process is ongoing? And I'm not the first one to say this, but the thing, when it's all said and done, would you want this built next to your neighborhood? And if they stuck with building something in the current zoning, I think everybody would be happy with it. I don't think you would get a single complaint. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Jada Gailey.
Hello, my name is Jada Gailey, 523 Wedgwood Drive, former resident of Frontier and Skyline. I'm here to speak against the changes in PUD 2502. This item was tabled at the June meeting to allow the developer to address concerns raised at that meeting. Last Thursday, I was able to attend a meeting hosted by the developer where some changes were highlighted. I will say, based on those changes, an improvement from the earlier version. However, as a resident of the area for more than 20 years, I'm still concerned that it doesn't fit the neighborhood. Also, given the changes, it really doesn't solve any of the immediate needs in Stillwater for affordable entry-level housing, in my opinion. Is the planned unit development Cowboy Landing needed in Stillwater? I think that's debatable. As presented last Thursday, it will now be a game day neighborhood, which is not the same as a residential neighborhood. It is targeting absentee owners who may be in town a few weekends of the year. When they aren't using it, they'll potentially be short-term rentals. Nobody I know looking to establish a home will be interested in living next or living in a community where they have no idea who their neighbors will be from weekend to weekend. This development is 2.5 to 3 miles from any athletic venue. No one is going to walk from Jardeau to those areas, especially if there's no sidewalks to connect it. And if they do, they're going to have to walk 4 lanes of traffic to cross to the south side to find a sidewalk, or they're going to trespass and walk across neighbors' lawns until they get down to Skyline. There are no residents within or restaurants within walking distance. There's no entertainment venues close by. There is a park, but again, no sidewalk. The community might have amenities, but that is to be decided by the HOA, whether it will be built or it won't be built. Who's going to serve on this HOA? The majority of the homeowners are going to be non-resident or non-permanent residents. Who will enforce the rules of the covenants if it's developed? If Stillwater needs this type of development, there are better places, in my opinion, that make more sense. Why not closer to the walking trails or potentially next to the pedestrian corridor that's supposed to be where the old railroad tracks are? Why not consider something closer to Block 33 since we're going to have all these wonderful activities that will be hosted? I know the developer doesn't own those areas. That's why he owns what's in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is family homes. That's what we need in Stillwater. I would welcome a development of small to mid-size homes. It's my understanding this is what the land was sold for. It's what it's zoned for, and it's what we need in Stillwater. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Block 34, by the way. Just you spent a lot of money on that. Let's. Thank you. I think you could buy Block 33 and build stuff on it, though. All right. Stephen Gose.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Stephen Gose, Gose & Associates, 113 East 8th Avenue, here on behalf of the developer. Just wanted to go over, I don't know if this will work, if they bring it up on the screen. It's a color rendering of the revised site plan. I think you all have it in your pocket, or your packet, not your pocket. Just to go over some of the things that changed. The overall unit count, as discussed earlier, has been reduced to 32 units for a gross density of 7.9 units an acre. The density along the west property line, which was discussed last time, is now 7.3 units an acre. So that's within the 100 foot of the lot, or the adjacent parcels zoned large lot single family. And there's just 4 lots now along that west property line adjacent to the Fairbanks property. The internal roads have been adjusted to 27 foot back of curb to back of curb, which meets the street standards and wide enough for a fire lane, and also allows parking on one side in the areas where there's not driveways on the property, on the lot. At the north end of the drive, we added 2 parking spaces for some community space back there and enough room to turn a passenger vehicle around, not a fire truck, but we discussed that with the fire chief, not the chief, sorry, fire marshal. And we're going to sign it just to help everybody understand that it's not a fire truck turnaround. And then the number of on-street or common spaces have been increased. So there's a row on the south end to the relocated common space, and then in the middle of the site there's an area to park on the street. Sidewalks have been added along the streets internal to the site. The discussion of the common space, the statement of intent talks about that there's room for pickleball courts, cornhole, and fire pit. We didn't want to specifically state those will be built, because as time changes, the desired amenities may change. Somebody may want to put in a volleyball court or something, and if it's listed in the statement of intent that it must be a pickleball, then it's always got to be a pickleball. Just to address a couple of issues real quick, as far as a smooth transition, with it being zone commercial to the east, we do feel this helps with that transition of the future development of the commercial. And the garages, they're 9.5 feet wide as currently proposed. That's kind of standard size for a parking lot. Yes, or parking space. It's going to be tight, but based on just the size of the houses, that's kind of where it needs to be. So we're here to answer any questions now or later on. So,
Okay, thank you. John Bartley.
Mayor and Council, John Bartley, representing the developer, 623 South Lewis Avenue, Stillwater, Oklahoma. I just want to point out a few items. We've already talked about the multiple neighbor meetings, and we've talked about the changes to the plan. Stephen has talked about the specifics on those changes to the plan. And I mean, I think the developer and we feel that it is a better plan now than it was. And I feel like we took advantage of that time from the first meeting to now in order to make those improvements. And so as you look at this plan and you see this transition from the east, where you have commercial and then you have large vacant to the north, and then as you are heading west, you are hitting single family. Then you have a 4-lane road immediately to the south, and on the other side of that road is another single family neighborhood. This is not putting a huge densely developed project in the middle of an existing single family neighborhood on all sides. And so I think really looking at the actual current use and the legal use of what could be happening to the east, because it is zone commercial, that could be happening at any point, that this does provide a good and fair and well-planned transition as our city has grown and evolved. Speaking of growing and evolving, this plan has evolved over time. And the initial concept with the 42 units would have allowed it to be a much more achievable and affordable housing per unit. That is not able to happen with 32 units. So there is no doubt that the price point of these units is appreciably higher than the original goal. With that additional price point, that changes your target market of who that may be. It unfortunately is not going to be for first-time home buyers. With that said, Stillwater needs more housing at all levels and of all types and for all people. HOA real fast, and by the way, I will be available for conversations afterwards. This will be managed professionally by an HOA. This will not be neighbors that are solely on the board and running it and making the decisions. The plan will be, and the budgets will be established to hire a professional company that is used to property management and has experience in homeowners association management that will be running it, operating it, maintaining, and enforcing the rules that are there. The HOA will also have very formal rules on enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Safe Lucy.
Good evening, Safe Lucy, 2002 South McElroy Road. Sorry, I apologize. I've said this address way too much during this period of time, but I wanted to say thank you first to my neighbors. I do appreciate you guys have come out to multiple meetings that we've had with y'all. We really appreciate the feedback that we've gotten and where we're at this point with the development. Again, the counselors that were able to attend, we thank you too. Your team here in the city of Stillwater has put a lot of effort into this project too, helping us get to this point. So we appreciate this entire process and thank you. We can answer any other questions we have at the end. Thank you all.
That is everyone I have signed up for public comment. Did anyone think they signed up? All right. We will move on in the agenda, but like I said, we've got a couple things here just to postpone, and then we'll get to this presentation. So we'll jump to item 7, public hearings. 7A was to receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment to rezone property addressed as 320 South Walnut Street from small lot single-family residential to two-family residential. We have a memo from staff to postpone this item to September 8th, excuse me.
Yes, that's correct.
Do we need to vote on that?
Yes, please.
All right. Counselors.
I move to postpone this item to September 8th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone item A to September 8th. Please vote. Vote of 5-0, that item will be tabled to our September 8th meeting.
And the notifications will happen again, I assume, as a result?
No, both of these public hearings are related to the same project at the same address. And because one of the SUP needed some additional time to review, we're requesting to table both of them. By tabling to a date certain, it does preserve the notice on both of these items.
Thank you.
7B has received public comment regarding a request for a specific use permit for property addressed as 320 South Walnut Street to allow townhomes in the two-family residential district. We also have a memo to table this item to September 8th. Is there a motion?
Motion to table this item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to table item 7B to September 8th. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, item 7B will be tabled into our September 8th meeting. That takes us to item 8, general orders. 8A is consideration, discussion, and possible action to establish a planned unit development in small lot single-family residential zoning at property addresses 1924 and 2002 East McElroy Road, CC-25-108. Take it away, Henry.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor and councilors, as you said, this is for a planned unit development at 1924 and 2002 East McElroy Road, referred to as Cowboy Landing. Some background, we heard this project about a month ago on June 16th, 2025, where City Council held a public hearing for Cowboy Landing. 9 neighbors spoke in opposition to the proposed planned unit development. Members of the public raised concerns, which included, but were not limited to, a list of concerns very similar to what we heard tonight. The preliminary PUD for Cowboy Landing was tabled until today, which is July 21st, 2025. Here's the previous site plan. Some notes on this is that there were 42 proposed units. Let me get my laser pointer. So we had 9 community parking spaces, which were right here outlined in red. There were 2 common open spaces, the one on the north, which includes this detention facility, which wraps around, and then this open space right here, which did have a structure on it. There were no internal sidewalks, and there were 24-foot wide streets, which were relevant because with 24-foot wide streets, both sides of the streets had to be a fire lane, which had no on-street parking. Here's the revised site plan being submitted for your consideration today. I'm going to highlight some of the differences. So there's a decrease in the number of the proposed units from 42 to 32. They also set a maximum of 4 units along the western edge right here. So you can see there are larger lots along the western edge abutting the RSL, or large lot single family residential, to the west. The number of public parking spaces has increased from 9 to 29. So you can see 18 public parking spaces right here, 9 parallel parking spaces along this street, and 2 up here along the open space to the north. Additional open space has been included, which incorporates some amenities. You can see example amenities, which can include a dog park up here on the north. And you can see, as they said, it was sized for but not guaranteed pickleball and other amenities here on the south. Internal sidewalks have been added. You can see outlined in yellow here along the perimeter of the site on one side of the streets. A passenger vehicle turnaround has been added on the north. As was already pointed out, this is not for fire trucks or emergency vehicles, and there will be signs stating so. And the streets have been widened to 27-foot wide streets, which allows for parallel parking as shown here, with the exception of one street right here, which is 24-foot wide with the 90-degree parking off of that. So here's the requested modifications to the Land Development Code. We saw a very similar table a month ago, so I've outlined some of the differences here in red. Some of those key variances are not outlined because they did not change. So for example, the minimum lot area going from 5,000 to 2,400 square foot, and some of these other variances are staying the same. I'm going to highlight some of those differences, which would include the gross density. Current code requires 8 units per acre. This has been decreased from the 10.2, which was previously requested, to the 7.9. This was because of the decrease in those number of units from 42 to 32. The minimum lot depth had a slight change. It was previously requested as 80 foot as the minimum. That's been increased to 84 foot. And the front yard setback abutting McElroy, so that's the 2 residential properties abutting McElroy, will have a 25-foot setback from that arterial street, which is an increase of 20 foot, which is what is both previously requested and what code would require. So this is a slide we spent a lot of time on last time, the purpose of a planned unit development. Instead of going through all those, we could just say that staff does believe that the proposed planned unit development Cowboy Landing does substantially meet all of these requirements. So the next steps for consideration tonight is the preliminary PUD plan for Cowboy Landing. This, if approved, would come back before you for both the final plat and the final PUD. I'm open to answer any questions if you have any.
Councilors, any questions for staff?
Yes. So at one time, there was some concern about utility easement along McElroy. Has that been rectified?
It is on its way to being rectified. So they are showing 7 foot of right-of-way to be dedicated along McElroy. The statement of intent does say that that will be dedicated, and there is I'm not sure what to call it, a letter from OG&E saying they're not opposed to that dedication. There are still some technicalities before that right-of-way can actually be dedicated, so the easement will have to be partially released, but on its way to getting resolved.
So that would have to be resolved before they could start construction?
It would have to be resolved before a final plat or preliminary plat were brought before you.
Okay. So question maybe for city manager, maybe another point. Can we connect sidewalks to this to somewhere?
Yes, so we have a program, an application on our website called Sidewalk Connect. It's a great way for the community to recognize areas of the community that need connections. Like that's what the desire of city leadership and the TPAC committee, that's the Transportation Projects Advisory Committee. That's a citizen committee that oversees all of our transportation projects, which include streets and sidewalks and trails. Currently that data comes in via the sidewalk request or the connect, and we evaluate that as staff and engineering and present that to the committee for review and for consideration on what projects are ranked. Among those evaluation criteria, school connections to school sidewalks or for kids is high. That's not only for the city, that's also for the state. When we have any state funding from ODOT, that's always a high factor. So this being close to the junior high and having that connection that would be needed to the west to connect this development to Sunrise would be a consideration that staff would put in and present to the committee, the TPAC committee, for priority.
Thanks.
Along those lines, do you know if we have sufficient right-of-way along the north side of McElroy?
So, great question. On all sidewalk projects, we evaluate them for when we do have easement, or when we already have easement or right of way, and there's no utility conflicts. That's something Public Works. We have a Public Works team or crew that does sidewalks. They're dedicated to sidewalks. So for those projects that are easy and pretty straightforward, we send them to go do them. For those that need additional engineering easements acquired, maybe there's conflicts with trees or power lines. That's what we tend to give to an engineering firm to design.
We don't know one way or the other if the north side of McElroy would be a easy project or a difficult project.
No, it has not been evaluated, but obviously that would be, if it's the desire of this council and the community to make that connection, that we would put it on the list.
Well, is it something that could be required of the developer to do?
That's a good question. Making a further connection through the
paying for the sidewalk to be built across the skyline. I assume that would
need additional study. I don't know that that's a practice we require on private property.
Okay. Further questions for staff?
Could you just contrast, right? So we have zoning. The PUD kind of, right, is an allowance to do something, an exception to that zoning. Could you, when we talk about, so the density right now is within kind of as of right of use, right, based on the zoning that we're at. If we looked at the lot size, could you just contrast what it would look like if they were conforming to the zoned lot size? Do you know?
Yes, ma'am. So the largest request in this PUD or planned unit development is that decrease in the minimum lot size of 5,000 to 2,400 square foot. And they do meet that 7.9 units per acre with the 32 units. But that doesn't account for example, like all of the right-of-way that's required for the roads, even though it's not right-of-way because private streets, but it doesn't account for all of the roads being dedicated. So if this were being developed without a planned unit development or PUD and it were being developed with straight code, you could, for example, still see a private street going through this development with lots, left and right, east and west. Those lots would have to be a minimum of 5,000 square foot. They would have to meet all these current code requirements here on the left, so they'd have to be 50 foot wide, 100 foot deep. And there wouldn't be any requirements for, let me get back to this. There wouldn't be any requirements for open space as shown in these two open space. You would have to do some sort of detention pond, so there would be something being given as quote unquote open space for the detention facility at least. So what it would look like is you would have a lower density with less lots, and the lots would be larger. Doesn't necessarily affect the size of the houses, but that's kind of what that would look like. Did I answer the question?
I guess I was wondering more quantitatively if we knew how many we could fit as of right per the current zoning. Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, so I could do some rough
numbers. That's a fair
numbers.
question to ask Stephen or not.
It all depends on how it's laid out. So the engineer might have looked into this and might have an actual answer, but my rough answer would be it'd be 32 units as it's shown to meet the density. You would have to take out the required space for the infrastructure like the roads, which is normally around 20% of a project. So that means you're looking at roughly 25 lots. You'd have to take out the facilities for the detention facilities, which let's call this 4 lots worth. So then you're looking at, let's say, between 15 and 20 lots if it were developed with code. Rough numbers, I have not actually laid any of this out.
Fair.
16 to 18.
Thank you.
Can I bring this back up? So, I mean, just if you look at this, I don't know what the size of these lots are on the left, but the minimum, it says the minimum lot size is 2,400 square feet is what they're asking for. And so if you just think about a 2,400 square foot lot is roughly half of the 5,000. And so you still would need a space for detention. You would need space for utilities and streets. So roughly it seems like you could probably fit 16 to 18 houses maybe in this area, just assuming that where you see two houses side by side now, that would just be maybe one. The difference is, and I don't remember how deep these lots are, if they're what says, I guess 100, or they're 84 feet. So you'd have to make them a little bit deeper. But there again, if they're private streets, the lots can go to the lots could be measured from the center of the street. There's a lot of ways you can get the lot depth. I think 16 to 18 would be a really good number. I think another thing just to point out real quick is, as it is today, you can build two-story houses there. And they could be relatively close to other properties. That was something that we looked at, and I know that was a concern, is to whether some of these were one-story or two-story. And but yeah, with a traditional neighborhood, you don't have to have those open space amenities or that additional public parking. So that space could then be used to build other single-family houses. So that's why I said maybe 16 to 18 houses. So, and that's just a rough number. The developer might know something different.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Could you speak a little bit more, maybe Stephen or the applicant, about some of the adjustments you've made from a screening perspective, fencing perspective? I think a lot of the emails that we got were related to, obviously we can see the density shift, some of the shifts that have been made for parking in the street, but can you speak to some of the screening?
So the current plan, based on Planning Commission recommendations to you all, in their recommendations, has an 8-foot fence along the west side and a 7-foot fence along the east side. We've chose to honor that request. We've also added a series of medium and small trees along both property lines. They're each spaced about 30 or 40 feet, and then we staggered them so that there's, it's not, you allow room for the bigger trees to grow, and they're going to get limbed up just based on the way they grow, and then have the smaller understory trees in between. And I mean, even a small tree is 15 to 20 foot tall, fully grown. So, and the medium trees, I want to say, are in that 30 to 40 foot range.
Is there any specificity as to whether or not they're evergreen or deciduous?
At this time, there isn't. I mean, we definitely consider that. We were just going to go off kind of the Payne County recommended tree list.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephen, before you go away, talk a little bit about the 4 structures on the west side of that. There's been a lot of talk about, are they 1-story, are they 2-story? And I know that you've also, at the neighborhood meeting, we're talking about the slope of that land, but the fence is going to follow the slope, so the houses are still going to stick up above.
Well, I mean, the fences in the house, everything drains ultimately to the northeast corner of the site. So the road is gonna, that west road is gonna slope down towards the north, and then the north, east, south, east, west road is gonna drain. So we're gonna follow the topography as much as we can to create buildable lots without building them up, just from an efficiency standpoint. And right now, we aren't proposing any restrictions on the height of those western homes. So.
Any restrictions different than the normal zoning?
Correct.
Can you comment on the neighborhood meeting and sort of this discussion around, is this going to be marketed as short-term rental housing?
I'll let somebody else handle that one. So we'll bring them up.
The change in the marketing of this, of the potential buyer, it's not geared toward short-term rental. We do believe that the target market will be people either buying nice houses for children to live in when they go to OSU, or I didn't make up this term, but it is the going term, game day house. And what we think that means is people that don't live in Stillwater, that buy a property in Stillwater to to utilize while they are in Stillwater. And the number of those around our community is a staggering number. And the number that only get used 15 to 20 times a year is a staggeringly high number. That is the target market that we believe, that is the target that we believe will be interested in this type of development. The higher end price, the gated community, easy access to OSU, not walkable, but easy access to OSU. If I could take one step back on the height on the west, the houses on the height of the west, we can, or developer is willing to restrict those 4 units to single story if that is the deciding factor. We can limit it to that. We do appreciate what a 2-story house can be.
That would be my preference.
We can restrict the 4 lots on the west.
Thank you. Councilors, further questions? Comments, questions, or action on the item, I suppose.
All right, I would consider approving this with my vote with 3 conditions. Number 1, the composite fence would be on the east and west side, 8 feet tall. Number 2, the west border trees would be evergreen, non-cedar. And number 3, that those west 4 houses be limited to 1 story.
Second.
Was that a motion?
I make that motion.
Okay.
Just to clarify, the motion is to approve the revised plan as presented this evening with those 3 conditions.
Yes, I make a motion to approve the revised plan as presented with 3 conditions.
I believe there's a motion and a second.
We have a motion and a second. This one probably has some discussion. I don't know if people want to have, if anybody has discussion before we
Feel free.
vote.
I would make just a couple of comments on this, because I've gone back and forth a lot on this issue. And when the PUD was originally presented, I did not support it. I know there have been changes. I know those changes aren't necessarily everything that the neighborhood wants. One of the things as I was thinking about this is that I thought about my own neighborhood and my house that I bought 20 years ago. And when I bought that house, there was nothing behind it, and it was fantastic. And now there is a street of duplexes. And that implies college students, transient neighborhood, and probably some short-term rentals. I have no idea. And that's not what I would have necessarily picked. And yeah, there's some noise, but it's been okay. It hasn't made me want to move from my home. And so I still don't, I know this is hard, but I do know that there are times when things don't end up quite as bad as we think they're going to be. So that I would throw that in.
I still have some really deep concerns about just the transition of use. I think in particular, if it will be a more student-focused or game day-focused neighborhood, it just seems really inconsistent with the rest of that area compared to what it's currently zoned at. I think I was on council when we rezoned that property, and I was encouraged and hopeful that it would kind of be consistent with what we talked about that day when we allowed for that rezoning. It just really seems like you look at that block and it's just kind of this jut out of like really intense use right there that I'm really struggling to kind of see how that fits. And I think long term, I worry a little bit about getting a dense development and it not being successful, and then limiting our ability to have dense development where it is a good fit and where we do need it. Because we don't have a lot of this in Stillwater right now, and so it's a lot of pressure on the person that does it first. But we do need to have it. I just think we need to probably think about, is it the right spot? That being said, I really do appreciate the fact that the developer has been spending time with the community, trying to make a difference. I think the reduction in density is it's much better than it was. It just still feels like we're trying to make all these exceptions to make it fit, and at some point you just have to wonder, does it fit?
Well, I shared at the community meeting last week that I appreciated the developer, number one, listening to the input of the neighbors and taking into consideration their concerns and making adjustments. And it's never going to be perfect, and the neighbors are never going to be would never fully endorse it. But I believe that the developer's done what we asked of him a month ago, which was address these specific things, and he came back with a plan that addressed those specific things. And that's why I'm going to support the project.
I don't. This one's hard. This is a difficult, I think, issue to consider, because there are so many different variables that have so many different considerations that go into them. I agree, and I appreciate what the developer and his team have done to address some of the issues that were brought up the first time we talked about this. I think they've made an admirable effort to try to address what the community and what the council noted as concerns with the original plan. There's just a lot of things that I would go either way on, right? One, the question of transition and that sort of thing. I think, they make an excellent point that the corner right at McElroy and Jardot is zone commercial. Dollar General could buy that and build a Dollar General there by right. There is no community meetings needed for a commercial development to go right there at that corner. And if that was the case, then this would look pretty good as a transition between something commercial like that and the larger lot homes to the west. That is I think a concern or a question that you folks who do live in this area should consider as well, right? I mean, that transition would certainly could be much harsher with something, a commercial development that would be allowed on that corner. At the same time, I agree with Vice Mayor Jaloski that it is still a higher density and a different usage than what you would see around it on either side of the street, and so currently it feels like it doesn't fit very well in the area. At the same time, I think Councilor Hawkins' comments about, we all live in areas where someone could build. If I don't want someone to build, I live at a corner where across the corner there is a big vacant lot, and someone could buy that big vacant lot. It's currently in the county, not even in the city limits, so they could put just about anything they want there. And if I don't want them to do that, I either get to buy the land myself and keep them from, and do what I want with it, or I have to just live with the fact that this is a country built on private property rights, and people buy property and they have the opportunity to do with it what they feel is best with their property. And we don't get to tell each other necessarily, what to do exactly with each other's property. And so there's I say all this to just say there are a lot of considerations that go into trying to make a decision here. And one of our jobs as council, we we have to try to consider what's best for the entire community as a whole. Certainly the folks who live in this area seem to be fairly well convinced that it's not the best thing. It's not something that they want to see. But do we want, as a community, to have more housing available and more opportunities? And we have to be able to consider all of that. Now, I will say that one of the things that does concern me about this, and one of the reasons that I talked about last time about the idea of a planned unit development, was that we as Stillwater do need more affordable housing. We do need to make efforts in our zoning code to make it easier for people to develop housing. I think it's clear. I mean, I don't think it's fair to just say that the developer's just trying to make money here, because it is, of course, the case that if you can't build as many houses, you're going to have to charge more for those houses. It's just, you know, as the lots get bigger and the houses get bigger, they're going to cost more. And if we're going to tell them, nope, sorry, you're going to have to make it less dense, then we're going to expect that they're going to be more expensive houses. Now, that being said, I don't love the idea of us saying, let's make all these exceptions to our code so that someone could build housing that really we do have more of. We don't really need a lot more expensive homes, and, you know, as much as we need more affordable housing. I don't know that we need a lot more college rentals, and if so, then, you know, maybe in a different area of town. But again, I can make the argument against that, to say we could, you know, if we put these houses there, then that means people aren't buying stuff around Westwood and around, you know, some of the older areas of town where we have some of those older that should be affordable single-family homes that are already there that people can't afford because they're being bought to be game day homes, right? And so all of this goes together. It's a very complicated issue, and I have changed my mind about it several times in the course of having this conversation right now. I hope that from the standpoint of folks who are here to have this conversation, whether a counselor votes yes or no on the item, that they recognize that it's not just a question of, well, we think, you know, we want to do exactly what the neighbors want us to do, or that we want to do exactly what the developer wants us to do. We're trying to consider all of these fairly complex factors in making these decisions. And this is a tough one. I mean, this may be the toughest one we've considered in my time here.
I do think it's important to point out that, I mean, it has been changed. The zoning was changed to allow for more housing than was originally there. It's not that the developer can't build any homes there.
Great. Yeah, we have made an effort to try to make this a more developable piece of property already. I think for me right now, in my head, the thing that's probably the biggest is I would like to see us use this tool to create affordable housing, and that's not what this project is doing anymore. I'm not sure it's the tool I want us to say, hey, we're going to do this, and this is how we're going to use it, right? This is not the way I would have expected us to use this kind of a tool for this kind of a development. That's probably where I am on it right now. I know there were some questions out there, and maybe the city manager or city attorney could weigh in on this. I know some folks had asked, can we restrict single short-term rental housing specifically in this neighborhood differently than we do citywide? And I don't think we have anything in code that would let us do that now.
No, we were working through this with staff following the neighborhood meeting, because I think it came up there. The statement of intent does allow for any specific restrictions or covenants that would be applicable for future ownership to be included. The best way to handle that, if it is something that wants to be restricted, is for the developer to include it and for the HOA to enforce it.
From our standpoint, we've had some discussions already about short-term rentals and potentially restricting some of that, or trying, potentially in certain neighborhoods where we would do that, but that would require a larger code change before we could do that. Yes. At any level. Okay. All right, further questions, comments? We do have a motion and a second on the table. The motion and the second is to approve with the conditions that Councilor Hardin stated. If there's no further comments, please vote. The Motion fails with a vote of 2 to 3. Voting no, myself, Vice Mayor Jalowski, and Councilor Hawkins. All right. That takes us to item 9, resolutions. Resolution CC-2025-16, a resolution of the Stillwater City Council approving the submission of an application for fiscal year 2025 Airport Improvement Program entitlement funds administered by the Federal Aviation Administration for airport infrastructure improvements at Stillwater Regional Airport and approving the associated budget amendments for the required sponsor match.
So this resolution is for FAA grant application for funds to support procurement and installation of the baggage handling system at Stillwater Regional Airport in connection with the airport terminal improvements project. The numbers have changed slightly in the resolution based on conversations with FAA and some direction that some of the certain construction administration fees needed to be allocated differently and not as part of this grant. So as a result, the estimated total project costs are $1,183,222. So the anticipated cost share would be $1,124,061. Sorry, it's a big number. Okay, $1,124,061 for FAA grant funds, and the city's 5% sponsor match would be $59,161. As such, the grant application not to exceed amount in section 1 of the resolution should be revised to $1,124,061. Approval of this resolution with the changes noted that I just mentioned would authorize submission of that grant application, approve the associated budget amendment for the cost share, and authorize the mayor and vice mayor to sign any documents necessary to secure funding. If you have any other questions, I believe, yes, Airport Director Kelly Reed is here for questions.
Councilors, any questions? Is there a motion on the resolution?
I move adoption of resolution CC 2025-16.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. The vote of 5 to 0, the resolution is adopted. Item 9B is resolution CC-2025-17, a resolution in support of the appointment of William Joyce to the District 5 seat on the Board of Directors of the Oklahoma Municipal League, declaring said appointment to be for the benefit of the City of Stillwater and other municipalities within the district, and declaring the mission of the Oklahoma Municipal League to be for the public purpose. I've been a member of the board at the Oklahoma Municipal League for the last couple of years. My seat is up for re-election, and this was a resolution required by OML to make sure that the rest of the city or the city council is actually in support of me serving in that capacity. So I'm happy to answer questions if you have them about OML or take action on the resolution.
Thank you, Mayor, for your time serving on that board. I think it's so important, the kind of unique issues that local government tackles, and it's really great that we have representation from our community with you serving on that board. So with that, if everyone's okay, I'll make a resolution. Move to adopt resolution number CC-2025-17.
Second.
A motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Please vote. Resolution is adopted with a vote of 5 to 0. Item C is resolution CC-2025-19, a resolution adopting Block 34 park rules and regulations and approving the Block 34 park fees and approving the Market 34 rules and regulations.
Yes, so this resolution does just that. Adopts Block 34 park rules and regulations, approves the fees included, approves Market 34 rules and regulations. The resolution also does authorize the city manager to make revisions or amendments as necessary for efficient and safe operation and maintenance of the block. It's new. We anticipate we're going to learn as we operate it and might have to make some changes. Any changes to the fees does require city council action by further resolution. And with that said, I do also need to point out that the Block 34 park rules, just prior to the meeting, staff realized that we had lost 3 sections in what we believe was a probably cut and paste accident. So Exhibit A, which is the Block 34 park rental rules and regulations, is missing on page 4, 3 sections. They are as follows: acoustics, which limits the stage sound levels; 2, music licensing, which just sets forth that the event organizer is responsible for obtaining appropriate music licenses for the events and that there's fees associated with the use of the city's licenses. And then a section titled deposits that it's the deposit policy for rental on the block. These 3 sections will be added, and a full final version of rental rules and regulations will be posted to the city's website. With those changes, I would, there are also people here to answer the real questions about the block if you need them. Thank you.
Councilors.
Motion to adopt resolution number CC-2025-19.
I had a question first.
Sorry, you should have kicked me.
Just related to pricing, since that is something that requires council's input. I know, I'm trying to find the page that has the pricing. So we have several areas in the block. So the entire, a cost for the rental of the entire block, a cost for rental of the signature spaces, which is the soundstage lawn area and the pavilion, a cost for the soundstage and lawn area, cost for the pavilion, and then a cost for the beer garden. The lowest, the smallest space that's available to rent is the beer garden space, which if you've had a chance to walk around the block is I think where the picnic tables and the overhead patio lights are. And that cost is at $300 for 3 hours. I think this is I don't know if it's a concern. I just want to kind of hear what everyone else thinks maybe. I just want to make sure that the block is accessible to our community, that there's spaces that are affordable for people to visit that the block, but also make sure that it's set at a rate that ensures that people are investing with us and taking care of that space. I think that's a hard number to kind of realize, but I think I just had an initial concern that really the least expensive way to enter the block with a rental is $300.
Do you have a suggestion for an alternate number?
I would go down.
Well, I guess that.
I don't know. Honestly, I haven't rented a lot of spaces in Stillwater. I do know staff spent some time looking at what other communities are doing, and it's trying to hit that. I don't know if our community if our recs and community spaces folks have some, like in comparison, what does it cost to rent a space at the community center or some of the other, like if there's a pavilion at one of the other parks, what does it cost? And is there a way for us
You
to...
will probably hear us tag team this answer as we get more specific into some of it. When we looked at the space, yes, it is a $300 for that smallest space. And the intent was to look at it as what is appropriate for Block 34. If you are renting a space on this block, it is different than renting a pavilion in one of our park areas. Yeah. And so if it's truly like kids' birthday party or something of that easy access entry point where you've got a playground to play on and that, we do want to steer that toward those parks where it's better suited for the children's activities and the open spaces and the running. And so this Block 34 is meant to be a little bit more of that higher end selection for a party or a gathering. And so it is a price point that's higher just when you look at the atmosphere intended for the block.
But in the same nature as that we've been discussing and Kimberly mentioned as well, we'll be monitoring closely the block in so many different aspects as we experience the block as it opens and react to how it's being activated. And if we hear concerns on pricing or we're not getting bookings, I mean, that is something we will absolutely need to take back to this council, as Kimberly mentioned, for any changes to the fees. Now, we're going to also see a lot of changes that we need to make to some of the rules and regulations that will fall under my authority under this resolution, but those fees, definitely those entry points, we will watch, and if there is concern, we can definitely bring that back to the council.
No, I don't have to rent the beer garden if I want to just go sit and take some people over and sit down and have a birthday party, right? I mean, it's only if I want to try to
if you want exclusive space of that space and staff support for it also with the posting that that space is reserved in that. If you just want to go out and enjoy the park and there isn't a reservation of any of that space or a specific space, it is open public access. That's also the intent behind why the full block rental must be a special event, is because we want to ensure that both parties know, both the public knows that this block is our community block and is always accessible, but there are some events, private events, that you can also obtain those selected pieces and areas that are going to be exclusive, but you know that you're renting an exclusive spot in a public access point where you may have others join the area around your party.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, I like the fact that it's a little bit more expensive because it maybe discourages it from being rented so often, right? I mean, if it's cheap and easy to do.
Well, I don't know.
I don't want it to be rented, but I want people to just go use it.
I'm on this, yes, I want people.
Right, I mean, I want people to feel like every time I go over there, somebody's booked that and I can't ever use it, right?
Yes.
And so that
100%. I think for me, I think my concern is I want the community to feel welcome there. I think the way we keep that block as beautiful as it is today, you know, generations and decades from now, is by activating as much as possible and keeping it as busy as possible and having our community invest with us in keeping, taking care of the block. And so people using it and bringing their events there and bringing that energy and connectedness there. I just want to make sure that connectedness isn't like reserved for only people that can afford a certain price point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the funny kind of thinking about it. Like, I would say, I mean, if it was $50, I mean, what's a pavilion in Couch Park cost to rent? $50? Yeah.
Good job.
Just guessing. You know, I mean, I think you would have, you know, you'd potentially go, I mean, the pavilions, when you go to like Couch or some of the other parks, you sort of like kind of expect that there's probably going to be somebody that's using them if it's and I kind of want to make these less frequent, that people are actually reserving the whole space, just so like if I go over there with my lunch at, you know, or my family just wants to go pick up some food and go walk over to the park, that we're not always kind of running into, oh, well, it's been rented out, this part's been rented out, and, you know, it's all, you know, I don't know. I kind of like the idea almost of saying we don't really want it rented as much as we want people to just be there organically using it. Now, I'm not an expert, so I don't know if that's...
There's parts of it, right? I think like the pavilion and the sound stage, I mean, we want those rented because we want to bring hopefully more people to the block with that. I think, Brady, I think, you know, just the idea that we'll be monitoring that, you know, if we're not getting any rentals and we're not feeling like people are have been introduced well enough to, you know, start using it and feel comfortable just to come over with a picnic or something like that, then maybe that's an opportunity for us to reevaluate that. I just want it to be as inclusive as possible.
Absolutely.
And accessible to everyone.
Agreed.
Second. What if, well, this is maybe a silly suggestion before we vote on that. Because the resolution says any changes to the established fees shall only be made by further resolution. What if we just made that to any raises to the established fees would have to be, whereas the city manager could potentially lower them if they feel like, you know, if you feel like we need to lower them. Whereas if we were going to raise fees on people, we would want to say, no, that needs to come to council and let's talk about it. But then it gives us some more flexibility as along, because this is all, we're making it up as we go along, right?
Right.
And so the more flexibility we can have for staff to be able to say, hey, actually, this does need to drop. We're not going to have to wait for a council.
And it may not be the beer garden, right? It might be the stage that needs to adjust or something.
But once the fees have been lowered, they cannot be raised back to that level without city council action.
I mean, I think that's reasonable in the sense that, like, if, you know, they'll take it seriously. Like, if we're going to drop the fees, then, you know we got to be doing it for a good reason. But it does give a little bit more flexibility for staff to respond in ways that make sense. So, who made the motion?
I did.
Would you consider amending your motion to include a change to say any changes raising established fees?
I move to amend my motion to any changes raising fees need to come before council.
And I amend my second.
And we have an amended second. So we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution with that change to section 4.
And the
Please.
verbal revisions.
And the verbal revisions that the city attorney.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll post it all on the website.
Everybody knows what we're voting on. Please vote. That resolution passes with a vote of 5-0. Item 10, ordinances on first read. We can skip that one.
Yes.
That ordinance will not be in effect. Ordinance, item B is ordinance 3575, an ordinance authorizing an amended and restated lease agreement for the lease of city-owned property and buildings located at 808 East Alcott Drive and more commonly referred to as 701 East 12th Avenue to Community Resourcing Incorporated for operation of Our Daily Bread Food and Resource Center, providing for citizen-initiated referendum of said lease in accordance with section 4-2 of the city charter.
Yeah, so this is the city-owned building that's adjacent to Our Daily Bread Food and Resource Center. It was previously leased by DPS. When it became available, that's what allowed Our Daily Bread to expand to better meet their needs. So we do need to change the lease agreement. If you recall, we previously approved the lease through this section 4.2 charter process that requires that lease of property where the value could be more than $250,000 requires it to be approved by ordinance. And because of the long lease term, we need to approve it by ordinance. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilors?
Move to advance ordinance 3575 to second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, ordinance 3575 is advanced to second reading. Ordinance item C is also something we can skip because that item was tabled. Item D is ordinance 3577, an ordinance amending Stillwater Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Buildings and Building Regulations, Article 3, ICC International Building Code 2018 edition, Section 10-54, Industrial Construction Building Permit Expedited Process, repealing all ordinances to the contrary and providing for severability.
So City Code authorizes an expedited permitting process for certain industrial construction projects. Staff's requested review of the insurance requirements. The proposed change would require design professionals and plan reviewers to have errors and omissions policy in a minimum amount of $1 million or such greater amount as may be determined necessary by the Development Services Director. It's my understanding that this change is needed. It's currently worded that they will have a policy that is equal to 110% the total value of the project. And there has been some difficulty in establishing what that is. And on larger industrial projects, that prices professionals and design reviewers out of, they can't even get a policy for that amount. So the minimum amount of $1 million provides adequate protection to the city, and the additional authorization to give the Development Services Director some discretion allows us to review projects on a case-by-case basis.
And your office is good with those limits?
Yes.
Councilors?
Motion to advance ordinance number 3577 to second read.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to advance the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, ordinance 3577 is advanced to second read. On second read, we have ordinance 3574, an ordinance amending the Stillwater City Code by amending Chapter 16, Crimes, Miscellaneous Offenses and Provisions by repealing Article 7, Smoking, in its entirety and creating and adopting Chapter 16, Crimes and Miscellaneous Offenses and Provisions, Article 7, Use of Tobacco Products and Vapor Products in certain places prohibited, Section 16-170, Definitions, Section 16-171, Prohibited Conduct, Section 16-172, Required Signs, Section 16-173, Penalties and Enforcement, repealing all ordinances to the contrary and providing for statutory construction and severability. Councilors?
Go ahead.
Motion to adopt ordinance number 3574.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, that ordinance is adopted. Reports from the officers on the board. Ms. Carnley.
Yes, a request for executive session pursuant to 25 OS Section 307B1 for the purpose of discussing the employment, hiring, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of City Manager Brady Moore, City Attorney Kimberly Carnley, and Municipal Judge Tanya Ron.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
Yes, I'm going to go off script. I wanted to share that it was an honor to be at the lunch today at Eskimo Joe's and hear the mayor's proclamation for the 50th anniversary of Eskimo Joe's and the Stan Clark Industries. What an incredible entity that we have here in Stillwater, the economic impact that they've made, just the icon for Stillwater. And it was a great celebration. Stan Clark has founded that company and has run it with such a focus on customer service, his employees, taking care of their partners, and he's been a great community. He's contributed to our community in so many ways, and so it was great to be there to hear the mayor's proclamation. So I just wanted to share that, and also it was neat. I'll share this real quick. They opened a time vault that they put in 1992 when they opened the Sky Dome. So that middle section of Joe's. They put a time vault in. They opened it today in front of everybody. They really didn't remember what was in it, so Stan was kind of excited.
It was not at all staged. It was
very impromptu. But in there, buried deep in the vault, was a T-shirt, a 33-year-old T-shirt of the Stillwater Employee Association. It was quite in the 90s colors, and it was signed by Mayor Terry Miller. And so it was neat to be a part of that today, and I just wanted to share that.
That was fun. Thank you. Do you have anything else?
Nah,
you good?
Yep.
All right. Vice Mayor.
Yes. With deadlines quickly approaching, I want to take a moment to highlight the Stillwater Strong Relief Fund. Thanks to approximately 1,500 generous donors, more than $545,000 is available to help Stillwater residents, homeowners, and renters that were impacted by the March wildfires. If you or someone you know is affected, please apply for assistance at unitedwaypaynecounty.org/Stillwater-strong by August 1st. We're also encouraging everyone impacted to apply for FEMA and SBA disaster assistance by tomorrow, July 22nd, even if you're unsure whether you'll be accepted for funds. Applying helps document the full impact of the disaster and ensures support gets to those who need it most. I've seen some of the recent numbers. We actually have quite a few families in our community that have been able to take advantage of the SBA loans specifically. There's millions of dollars that are coming into our community as a result of that. I want to extend sincere thank you to the Stillwater Strong Task Force, the United Way, FEMA, SBA, Our Daily Bread, SASA, city staff, first responders, and all of our dedicated recovery partners. This collaboration, compassion, and commitment is what Stillwater Strong is all about.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, just to highlight that, I mean, you said 1,500 donors and more than $500,000 in fundraising that the United Way has really helped us facilitate. That is not money that goes to the United Way. They raise their own money, and it's very important that we in this community continue to support the United Way when their fundraising efforts for their own needs start, to make sure that they're able to continue to help our community when disasters like this strike. So really appreciate the work that United Way Payne County has done in helping us facilitate that fundraising, and would encourage everybody to continue to support the United Way as their fundraising season kicks off here in a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. I know it's a concern. They've been so focused and upfront with their supporting the Stillwater Strong Relief Fund that we definitely don't want to get that confused with their core mission in the community.
Thank you. Councilor Hawkins.
We invite the community to join us tomorrow for the grand opening of our new fire station number 2. From 10 to 11:30 a.m. at 1701 Northwestern Road. Come explore the new station with guided tours and celebrate this exciting milestone made possible by the support of our Stillwater voters in 2022. Together, let's sound the alarm that our new fire station is open and ready to serve the community.
That is very exciting.
Yes.
Very, very exciting. And honestly, this whole week, I mean, we had Eskimo Joe's today. We've got Block 34 this weekend. Sandwiched in between the opening of the first public bond infrastructure or facility project in Stillwater in more than 20 years. We have not opened something like this in this community since this building in 2000, 99 or something like that.
Right.
So Really, really big deal, really big for our community, really huge thanks to the voters who went out to support that, and really excited for the fire department and the firefighters who are going to have their jobs made easier by having that facility. Councilor Clark.
Our public library is wrapping up its final week of summer reading programs with Native American dance on Tuesday, a blacklight party at Stillwater for teens on Wednesday, and a family field trip to the Stillwater History Museum Thursday. Summer reading festivities will officially conclude on Saturday with a colorful tie-dye explosion finale for all ages. This week is also the last chance for summer readers to log their reading time to earn entries into the grand prize drawings. For questions about the summer reading program, contact the library at 405-372-3633 at extension 8106, or via email at askalibrarian@stillwaterok.gov. I didn't even know that was an email address we had. So, and thanks to the library staff for their efforts to continue to ensure summertime is in Stillwater is fun and educational. And I also want to add separately, Councilor Harden may mention this as well, but this morning we had the opportunity to tour our new airport terminal with Kelly Reed. And this is an exciting, game-changing project for our community. It is much larger than it looks inside than it looks from the outside. It's really laid out well. It's going to be just a tremendous new asset for our community, and I'm excited that it's coming, and you all need to get with Kelly and go out and look at it.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilor Harden?
Thank you so much for stealing my thunder. Stillwater Art Integration has officially launched this year's Utility Box Art Contest, and we want you to be a part of it. This year's theme, Stillwater Strong, is all about celebrating the resilience, creativity, and spirit that make our community shine. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just love to doodle me, this is your chance to help beautify Stillwater and leave your mark. Submit your designs and learn more at stillwaterok.gov/art. Let's make art happen together.
Love that project. Love the art boxes
Me
around
too.
town. Excited to see the next iteration.
I drive by 19th and Western every day. Every time I look at it, I see something else
Yeah.
in that box.
Yeah. Make sure you're paying attention where you're driving, though.
Yes.
I will take this opportunity to remind you for like the 5th time tonight that you need to come out to the Block 34 dedication ceremony on Saturday, July 26th at 7 o'clock p.m. There's a lot of stuff going on this weekend. So for clarification, the Dancing Turtle Arts Festival will begin on Friday. Our dedication ceremony will be during Dancing Turtle festivities on Saturday evening. So you'll actually be able to get out and go walk around Block 34 earlier in the day on Friday. I don't know if there's like an official, like this is when the fence comes down date. Do we know that? We just saying Friday morning sometime?
Pieces of it are already out.
Yeah.
Go line up now. Camp out. Be ready. Be the
No,
first
no.
one.
No,
Nope.
no,
No,
Mayor.
sorry, never mind.
No, Mayor.
Don't do that.
Don't camp on the block.
Yeah, just pass the rules.
So, Dancing Turtle starts on Friday. Block 34 has been a true team effort. We're ready to enjoy the Kicker Soundstage, the Simmons Bank Pavilion, and the many amenities included in this community space. Thanks again to the Irby family. Take a walk down Irby Lane while you're down there. And Kicker, Simmons Bank, many generous donors, the city staff, engineers, architects, the Stillwater Community Center Foundation, and many others who have turned this long-held dream into reality. For more information about upcoming events at Block 34, there are events planned into the future. And you can go to stillwaterok.gov/block34 to see that schedule.
My husband went and took my daughter to play tennis last night, and they drove by the block when it was lit up, and he came and picked me up afterwards to drive me over to see the block illuminated.
That's awesome.
It's so beautiful and so special. I know we've said that so many times, but seeing it all lit up and ready to welcome the community was a really cool thing.
Can't wait. All right, at this time, I will move that we recess the Stillwater City Council prior to item 13 on the agenda.
Second.
With a motion and a second to recess City Council, please vote. The vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council will now be in recess. But while we're in recess, I will call to order the Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting for July 21st, 2025. Trustees, questions, comments, or action on the consent docket?
Motion to approve the consent docket?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve consent. Please vote. The vote of 5-0, the consent docket is approved. Nothing else on this agenda. Any reports from the officers of the board? I just will take a second real quick and say we approve things on consent because they are fairly, ministerial. They're not items that we anticipate a lot of discussion on, that sort of thing. That doesn't mean that a lot of work doesn't go into them.
That's right.
And I appreciate the staff that's here just in case we have questions about some of these items. And I feel sort of like when we get to the budget process and we just sort of go, okay, the budget's done. And all of the staff who worked many hours on it, we just kind of are done. But appreciate you all for being here and appreciate the work that you've done to make these projects, which include lots of really, really important infrastructure issues for the city of Stillwater to move forward. So appreciate those items.
Well, and actually on that note, since it's time for announcements, I would like to recognize Chris Humes. He's been a great team member here at the city of Stillwater. Unfortunately, he submitted a letter of resignation because he's going to join Carollo, which we're really excited for him. It's a great opportunity. So he'll still be working with us and for us, I hope, in the future. And so we appreciate Chris and all his contributions. And that entire team tonight, as the mayor just mentioned, so much work goes into these consent items. One of the items that he was here to represent was one of our first components of the McMurtry pipeline, making sure we get that piece of infrastructure on order because of lead times. And again, thanks to Bill Millis, Chris Humes, and that entire team for all that they're putting into that critical project for us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Best of luck. Anything further, trustees? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the SUA. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater Utilities Authority is now adjourned. This time I will reconvene the Stillwater City Council meeting at item 13 on the agenda. Do we have a motion to enter executive session for the reasons requested by the city attorney?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to enter executive session. Please vote. With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council will now be in executive session. Welcome back. Is there a motion to re-enter regular session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go back to regular session. Please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jaloski?
Yes.
Councilor Hawkins?
Yes.
Councilor Clark?
Yes.
Councilor Harden?
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council is back in regular session. There were no recommended items from executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mayor Joyce?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jaloski?
Yes.
Councilor Hawkins?
Yes.
Councilor Clark?
Yes.
Councilor Harden?
Yes.
The vote of 5-0, the Stillwater City Council is now adjourned, and that concludes our meetings for the evening.